Today's inspiring mind is David Rippy. He's a motivational speaker, hypnotist, and inspiring author of Captain of the Soul, Powering Through Paralysis, The Immortal Soul, and Meeting Jesus. Welcome, David.
Thank you. I want to say I did my first novel after meeting Jesus, and it's called Texas Blue Moon, and it kind of brings in when I started out doing some little bit of writing back when I was probably after I was hurt, actually at 25, and did some songs and lyrics and things like that. And I thought, you know what, nobody's ever going to want to listen to some poem book I wrote. I didn't feel that confident about it. So I said, well, why don't I make a fictitious singer that sings all the songs I've written? He's playing down in Texas. We made it a period accurate location so you could actually go online and see that these locations exist. And they're kind of like a James Michener type fiction, Texas and things like that.
Right.
And have him play my songs. And of course, my songs go to #1 with CBS Records and on Billboard. So I said, why not, right? So that was kind of fun.
Maybe you could share with the audience a little bit about your background. We can get into specifically at age 25, you had a very life-shattering, life-awakening car accident. And before that particular year, when you were 25 years of age, maybe you could just share a little bit with the audience of what your life was like prior to that.
Yeah, it was pretty much a standard Midwestern upbringing. We grew up. We went to Presbyterian church when I was younger. Born in Oklahoma. I was kind of fortunate to have my grandmothers, my great-grandfather, and my great-grandmother, I guess, lived next door to Will Rogers. So that was kind of a cool thing. And we go down to his ranch on the bikes and the little 50cc Honda motorbikes. Hang out at Will Rogers. Of course, he was already way long passed away. Right. But that was kind of cool. And then, very standard, kind of fun. And, played sports, the swimming, the baseball, the football, the wrestling, all that stuff. And it's been looked at college later on, out of high school. And, went to Villanova, went to Texas A&M, and came back up here and got a nice job with a Fortune 50 company. And 3 weeks later, a friend of mine was driving and hit a dead dude in the road.
Wow. So
after that, we're sitting at home, 6 months of rehab, in hospital, a halo ring around my head, all that neat stuff. We said, what are we going to do now? We can't go back to the same job I was at, and we were, required mobility. So I said, what are we going to do? And I thought, well, being a stockbroker, a money manager sounds kind of neat. So I decided to figure out what goals I need to set to move from where I am, paralyzed, with a Bachelor of Science in Economics, but no work experience in the field whatsoever.
Right.
No licenses, nothing, not even a strong resume whatsoever. I was just getting out of school. And kind of figured out what goals I said, wrote about that in Captain of My Soul, and how I got from point A to point B. And then stayed in Merrill, Lynch for like 4 years, and then went to the Vanguard group, managed money there. And then probably about 2012, 13, it was kind of a situation where I was kind of wondering, I started this back at 25, actually. Let me go back and rephrase a little bit. Right at my injury time, I'm like, why am I in a wheelchair? I'm 6'2", 190, bench at 3 1/4. I mean, why me?
Right.
And I kind of thought, is there more to this? Because I didn't know much about reincarnation at the time. Growing up Presbyterian, it obviously wasn't in the Bible. They had taken that out 553 in the Council of Justinian, Emperor Justinian. But prior to 553 AD, I learned, this was years later, I learned that, St. Gregory, Basilides, Origin, all of them talk about reincarnation. Even the Council of Chalcedon in 451 AD, all the way up through. Plato started this immortality, so a lot of Christian theology is kind of based on the thoughts Plato had back in 380 BC or something.
Right.
So anyway, that's how it started. So I was at work. I kind of thought that, this isn't that fun right now. I'm kind of bored with it. Why don't we write some books? Now, I never really wanted to write a book, but, tracing back different lifetimes. I did my first past life regressions at 25, saw a remarkably different person than I am today. So that piqued my interest. Started reading Edgar Casey and Michael Newton, Dr. Brian Weiss, Dolores Cannon, all the ones that, you know, made impact, you know, the field of past lives and reincarnation, the University of Virginia Paranormal Studies Department. So I enjoyed that, and then we learned we kind of had a knack for hypnosis. We had been hypnotized 3 times. I'd read a lot of books. So we started kind of pursuing helping people with pain. That's how it started. So after I had my money management career, and even while I was still working up to about 2014 at Vanguard, I decided probably about 2012 or so, I had an assistant show up, and she couldn't move her neck. She was, you know, her neck was frozen, too much pain. And she goes, Dave, I don't think I'm going to be able to help you tonight. And I thought, wow, she can't help me. I'm going to spend the night in a wheelchair. It's not real comfortable.
Right.
So I turned around and said, in my mind, I said, let's try something. So she kind of, you know, like what? You know, she had never been hypnotized before, anything like that. So we hypnotized her to get the pain out of her neck, and had her sit back up about 45 minutes later, kind of looking shocked and feeling her neck. It was great on the left side. The right side, and she said she had a little pain left. So we did it for another 15, 20 minutes, had her sit back up, and, you know, her pain was gone. And she was able to just kind of lift me up out of the wheelchair and put me on the bed, which is, you know, 180 pounds, whatever. So
Right.
it's not an easy feat, you know, regardless of how you feel. And she goes, did you do something with my knee? And, you know, I knew her, you know, she worked for me like 8 years, so I kind of knew her well. I was about high school and, you know, tearing an ACL playing sports. So, you know, I go, yes, yeah, we did. We took the pain on that as well. And she goes, God, I feel so energetic. She had slept for like 2 or 3 nights. It was killing her. And she woke up and just, you know, felt totally energized. And I felt like I just feel wired. And maybe she'll sleep, so I didn't keep her wired for the whole 24 hours. But at that moment, you know, you begin to realize the power of hypnosis. And I had seen, at age 25, I saw a lady on TV hypnotize 3 individuals, and kind of put them in their lives that were very different from what they had. And I always kind of wondered, I didn't know about reincarnation being in the Bible at 25. That was years later. But what I did figure, I go, you know what, I probably had a past life. It wasn't a very devout background in religion. It was more of, you know, let's get to the church when we can. My dad's on the road. My mother's got to bring 5 of us in the church, and that's very difficult, you know, for anyone.
Right.
Anyone. So our church days, if my dad was out of town, he was working hard, you know, kind of limited. So I didn't really grow up, you know, we grew up knowing the, you know, the basics and, you know, that kind of deal. But anyway, I don't know. I don't think it was really due to that. It was due to the fact that, you know, I just thought, maybe what's behind the veil?
Right.
You know, where did grandmother go? I miss her. I was fortunate not to lose, you know, we lost some pets and things like that. My grandparent that lived a long, you know, a couple old age, but, you know, never something real young, which might have started that journey earlier. And, you know, loss of a good friend, for instance, a father. A friend of mine turned me on to this when I was at Merrill Lynch, and the first book I really read on was called We Don't Die by George Anderson. You know, he's a big guy in New York. And his mother committed suicide when he was a sophomore in high school. He just never knew why. So he was interested in exploring that, you know, her story. And, you know, kind of had a lot of confidence. We kind of learned these things and started using hypnosis for pain at first. And then started dealing with the past lives.
Yeah. Did your family background play a role in holding you back in terms of
That's interesting you said that. It's a good question because I'm the only one in my family that kind of went down this path.
Right.
A couple of them are, you know, semi-open-minded, at least hearing a little bit, maybe 10 minutes of, you know, things I'm involved in. But, you know, when you start bringing it too much, they're all just, I don't want to really talk about it. They rather talk about sports or, you know, not say they're simple, they're very smart, but just not interested in, you know, if they had their lives or not.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's almost a balance of the masculine and feminine qualities and the left and right part of the brain. And obviously working in a financial would be somewhat more of a left brain, you know, geared.
All analytical. Yeah, all analytical. I guess my balance way back when I started at Merrill Lynch, 25, 26. You know, I did have a lot of goals set when I was 25. I, you know, came through college and kind of okay grades, good enough to pass, and get a job, which is
Right.
good. That's kind of what all we strived for back then. It was not like, today where kids who start out at 12 going, I want to work for Amazon or Alphabet. Not that kind of upbringing. It was more like, okay, we'll get a job, we're supposed to, we're graduating college. But, nothing really ever interested me as far as working disciplines. I would have been a stockbroker, I don't think either, if I did get hurt. Okay, I would have been. I lived more in real estate and West Coast and California, just having, kind of a fun life while I made a living.
Right.
So it really deepened me getting in a car accident in the sense that, started happening with the why me for a couple of weeks. And it's kind of like, is this it? If I'm going to spend my life in a wheelchair, that's all I'm ever going to know. And that kind of led me to, exploring past life for myself.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think throughout our lives when we're under stress, it's almost as if we're able, if we're aware of it, how we're able to dislodge ourselves from our body. It's almost.
Well, you're right.
And look at ourselves and say, you could almost say, I almost sometimes when I was under stress, looked at my hands and said, are these my hands? Do they belong to me? Or look at my tongue in the mirror and say, I don't feel my tongue, but it's there. And as I look at you and I see the inner strength and power and courage that you exhibit and have, did you ever go through that prior to this? Did you ever look at your body and question the connection, the unity?
Question the what again? I'm sorry.
Well, in terms of looking at your body and how we're able to, at moments, if we not choose to, but we're able to almost dissociate ourselves from our body.
Yes.
Had that.
Totally. Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying now. Yes, and one of the things when you're paralyzed, here I am, an athletic guy.
Right.
We're playing championship level racquetball, we're water skiing, we're lifting weights, we're running 5.5 minute miles. Not that I was a runner even. But to go from that, one dark night, late October, and 3 a.m. all of a sudden slumped down in this little Subaru with the roof caved in. Right. I mean, that was very surreal at first couple of weeks. But what I found was that I never really meditated. I never slowed down enough. I was playing sports like most 25-year-olds or whatever, if you're into it. The gym, going to work, going out and having fun, getting up. It was kind of my cycle. But when I got hurt, it wasn't that I was trying to meditate in the hospital. But the neatest experience that led me on this path of creative imagery and then sharing that with others under hypnosis was one night I was hallucinating. I had about 25 ice bags packed in my body. And one of the things with spinal cord injury, for some, especially me, who ran a high level, is that your temperature will spike for about a month-long period in the hospital. So my temperatures would be normal. They'd be 98.6, give or take. And all of a sudden they would spike up to 102 to 103 to 104 at night. I had zero control of that. And nobody else did. They couldn't let's load Dave up on, some aspirin or ibuprofen before he gets it. It just wouldn't be strong. It wouldn't be strong enough. So they literally had to bury my body every night and keep changing these ice bags that they pop and put 25 with an ice blanket on top of that. So I would lay there hot as you can imagine. You can imagine the hallucinations and the sleep deprivation. So here I am with this big fever. I'm not sleepy. I'm mistrustful. I'm a young kid, no hospital experience. So I didn't want to sleep. I want to be cognizant of everything that's happening to me. The operations hurt. They cut my neck open. They screwed a metal ring in my head for 3 months. And you're just like, wait a minute. I'm not going to sleep. I didn't get a lot of sleep because I was more concerned about, what do these guys have in my next? I feel like Frankenstein here.
Right.
I get cut, I've been sutured, but I'm still not moving yet. I'm athletic. I want to go back to my previous life. So when you're laying there one night, for whatever reason, they fouled out for 2 hours. We're about to come back, check my temperatures, replace all the ice bags. So, running around doing a regular shift. I mean, they had a lot of other patients besides me. So I had 2 hours to myself, and for some reason, I find out later it was downloaded to me by angels or spirit guides. I visualized this large map of the United States and a steam train, because I like old locomotives, that kind of junk. And I'm from Philadelphia. And I'd been to California 2 years earlier because I worked on the West Coast in California, LA, Frisco, on an oil tanker going from Alaska down to Panama and took the college semester off. Heck of an experience. It paid a lot of money too. So anyway, I knew Frisco. I knew how to, San Francisco, how to get there. So I visualized in the train wheels, I found after a little while, were matching my brain speed. My mind would spin. So it was like I was on a lathe or shooting off into space every night of the week. And that's what happened, is that my brain was spinning that fast. But the locomotive that was leaving Philadelphia, and I just knew that the game was to stop that train before it got to California. So I visualized myself, I was a conductor even. So I saw myself as a conductor in this old steam train. And then I'd be way above the train looking down at this huge map. And I could see the train coming out of Philadelphia like a rocket sled on wheels. And it was blazing across the map. And I noticed, I go, wow, that train's wheels is the speed of what my mind's spinning at.
Wow.
So the game was kind of like slow the train down. So I just started concentrating. I never meditated before. Started concentrating to slow those wheels down. I saw as the wheels slowed down, my mind spinning was slowing down as well. So it's quite an amazing thing. So I got to California. I see myself going across the border, this huge map, kind of like some out of an old Gunsmoke reel where you see that train going across, something like that. And I find myself back in the steam locomotive, back up in the air, looking down at the map, and slowed it down to where I drifted about 50 yards outside the station in San Francisco. To slow it down even more, I visualized my girlfriend from school standing there waving at me, just as another prop. And then the train went about 50 yards past the station. I jumped out, I ran back, hugged my girlfriend, and that was it.
Wow.
Bang, I was out.
What?
And just to make it real quick now, what was interesting was after that experience, I started, I never hallucinated again the rest of my life, and I had control of my mind back, which was all I had because the physicality was, compromised. So I had my mind for the first 3 or 4 weeks, sleep deprivation, the fevers, took that vestige of control I had away too. So I had lost that, but the download or the creative imagery brought that back. So as soon as that brought it back, it led me to see, out of the hospital faster, I healed faster. And that was about it. So that was how my first exposure.
It's amazing. It's almost as if the soul was trying to teach the ego how to contain itself.
Well, how to find a way to get better. I was like I said, I was sleep deprived. I had a fever. I got a ring screwed on my head. I get hard to sleep. We got 4-quarter screws drilled into your head every night. So, and another thing that's interesting is I had 0 painkillers the entire time. And it's not like I'm, James Bond or some Buddhist monk where I go, oh, pain, I can handle it. I don't think about it. No, I wasn't at that stage at all. At that time, I couldn't disassociate myself. The thing you mentioned earlier, Adam, I just wanted to, really what led to this was the paralysis. Kind of led me in situations where maybe an assistant couldn't come in for an hour or two. Maybe she couldn't come in for 5 hours because of the snow.
Wow.
So I found myself, I didn't have the TV on, I didn't have a radio. So I found myself starting to do more mind type things as well. And I had that experience in the hospital looking down at the map. So, I started visualizing myself like coming out, going over to my dresser in my room, touching the content, see what it feels like, see how hard it is, knowing the handles and everything. Even though it's what I've never touched before. I bought it after I was hurt. Then I visualized myself coming out of through the walls.
Amazing.
So then I started practicing that, and I went from there to sitting on the rooftop of the Brickside Grill down the street. I go from there, sit on the roof at Claremont Apartments where I live, and that got boring. It was almost like that movie Leaper, it says, or Jumper. And
right.
I said, well, I've always liked pyramids. I have paintings. I got pyramids all over the place. Let's go to Giza. So we'd sit on top of that pyramid. I visualize myself, early morning with the sun rising over the Egyptian desert, sitting on top of that pyramid and just gazing out, kind of looking at life and, that kind of thing. So I did that. Then I decided to do the Eiffel Tower, whatever.
Yeah.
And that led to other things. That led to, other stuff, I don't get too out there for some of the people listening to this. But.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I was gonna ask you, be it that you're a person who is involved in this spiritual field and has gone up this path and has actually lived this particular journey, how would you describe your particular life in terms of a soul contract? Did you
Well,
ever?
that's a good thing. I kind of learned later. Another thing I did, Adam, was, and I have no problems doing this. I've done this before. Or might have been in a relationship situation at the time. I was getting bored of my career. I wanted to see, if I could find answers to what's ahead or what could be ahead for me. And then I reached out to the top gifted psychics that I know of in the country and the world. Okay. And kept notes and stuff and asking one question, like, you see me staying in my current job position? And they all said the same thing. And they all said, we see you leaving, you're going to write, you're going to speak, and all these things. And this was coming out like in 2012. When I was still at Vanguard, 14 or 14. And I'm like, write books? Really? I mean, I'd never written a book. I really didn't have any desire to write a book, to be honest. And then I found that as time went on with the meditation, with the things like that, doing the hypnosis for others, that we started transcribing recordings we've done. We talked about healing pain, and kind of moved into that direction, and enjoyed it a lot. I found it much more interesting than managing money all the time. So we did that, and then that led into other things. That led into other books, and I had no idea that we were going to continue to kind of go down this path. But they all said the same thing: your soul contract is here. This your lady in 2012 told me this. The book didn't come out till 18 and a half, The One Immortal Soul today. She goes, you got to write a book on enlightenment. It's very important to get this information out. You've done these things in other lives. That's one of the reasons you're here. So I think the accident, I came back, and what I've learned, it's kind of interesting. I kind of learned that the accident, it wasn't like I signed up necessarily to be in a wheelchair.
Right.
But I was running around like not a crazy 25-year-old, but I was, having a lot of fun. But they could see that if you look at the timeline, that getting back on my spiritual path which I really hadn't, I didn't have one, at the time, took something pretty dramatic. And I think from what I've learned is I kind of agreed to, take something fairly severe to ground me down and get me back on the path. And I was amazed because I was told this a long time ago. And it's amazing when you look at the information you can get if it's coming from the Akasha. Right. And I did watch some of that one with Gabrielle too. One of the really neat episodes you had. I found that a lot of this stuff is no different than probably the oracles of Delphi or some of the exposure I had to other mystics and psychics way back in other lives, whether it's in Greece or other places. It's kind of, a lot of people hunt them out. Some people go, well, I saw a toroscope, I did this, and I talked to a psychic for $5. No, I reached out to ones I knew. Right. They were tested, they were proven, they won international challenges, and I knew those were the ones that I could put together this mosaic of why I'm here. So I did learn my soul lessons, and then I learned that I've covered that contract, but staying here. I was going to think about going back about 4 years ago, but what I was depressed at all. Just that, okay, we've done this. Everybody told me I filled it, so why hang out if you don't have to? Even though I like my family and pod and all that neat stuff too. Sure. But I decided to stay, and then we decided a whole nother long list of things to accomplish. But once you fill a soul contract, everything that's above that is basically just extra. Yeah, which is good. It's like having that chocolate cake and being able to put that ice in a lot thicker. It makes it a lot more palatable when you go back home.
Well, I would think the audience is in listening to your story would be truly inspired by the strength and the power that your soul exhibits, and I don't think it was able to be contained by the body itself in your situation. It's almost.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, that's an inspiring chapter of your life, even though you're in a position where you will probably, as you fight on, find that place again.
Well, it's interesting, Adam. I learned, I didn't know a darn thing about spinal cord injury. I didn't, and believe it, interestingly enough, I never took a biology course, or I took some chemistry course and physics and junk like that in college or high school. But I never took any course with anatomy or physiology, so I knew absolutely nothing when I was hurt. So here I am, a 25-year-old kid out with a friend dancing, having fun, drinking a few beers, waking up in the woods, and you just, and all of a sudden you're in a hospital and they're pulling your neck out with 130 pounds hanging off a wire to separate the spinal cord from the broken vertebra. So that was like my first experience of being snapped into this whole different realm, so to speak. And from there, what you mentioned earlier, I hate to keep segueing off on you, but when you mentioned about we talked about leaving the body, but the injury, my career at Vanguard and Merrill Lynch managing money. I mean, literally all I did was pretty much talk all day long. It was kind of a neat job. So the training from that. The training from, being able to talk, the training from that, coupled with kind of what we did, helping assistants with pain initially, is just, been kind of steps, taking me where we are today.
Right. Okay, let's move a little bit away from that aspect of your life and get into I was looking over the book, The Immortal Soul, and I was very fascinated with some of the stories that I had read. In fact, I had mentioned in one of my interviews and with someone else that I had a reoccurring, let's say, situation where I would look at vents and I would see. I thought I smelled smoke,
Wow.
and it was an aspect almost as if that part of my life was calling me to wake up to something that had happened in the past. And in reading The Immortal Soul and looking at some of the cases that you had, it was so fascinating. For example, the Hertzov, Lieutenant Hertzov in the Aquarius, the Age of Aquarius, very fascinating. If you could just share a little bit with the audience, it's about
your client. Yeah. Well, anyway, this Lieutenant Hertzov that Adam's referencing is one of the stories in the book. It's a 28-year-old, roughly 26-year-old female who, we brought in a hypnotic trance, and she described her life as, being in the Nazi party, the Third Reich 18th Battalion. She knew her name. She knew her children's name. She knew all the people in the tank with her. And it was the only story, or the only hypnotic recording that kind of led into, wow, hurting people is not not good, and wantonly killing. I mean, it was literally kind of a a simple rule that we should have known for the Ten Commandments. We just want to go there. So anyway, she was good at it. At first, her attitude was fairly aggressive. Like, I did whatever my boss told me to do. If he wanted me to go clear out that neighborhood and kill some people, we just did what he told us to do. And that was kind of the attitude. And then later on, she realized when she passed on, being blown up in the tank, all of a sudden seeing herself in total darkness and just no sound. And, she'd grown up in Germany as a Catholic, and she had kind of that influence maybe, but it wasn't really a hell and fire brimstone, that we've been led to believe, which isn't true anyway. But the main thing is that in that faith, that's all she knew. As Lieutenant Hertzog at age 23 as a young Nazi soldier. And from there, she left. She was blown up in the tank. But she knew things that normally most people wouldn't know. She's a 28 or 26-year-old at the time. English major, college, nothing to do with history, didn't know anything about this stuff. But knew some German words. She's talked a little bit like coordinates, like they must have known our coordinates, and just words she never used, not being in the service background. So that was interesting. And then she described how I didn't know this. She described how the Panzer tank means armor, which I didn't know either. So she's telling us all this stuff, and then she goes into how they blew up. And I didn't know this. I went and read it later on the internet. But Panzer tanks were kind of like some of the cars back in the 70s or 60s. They were grim. They blow up if you hit them from behind.
Right.
Yeah, I forgot some of that. But that's what happened. She was at the border. She's describing where she is. She's in the 5th tank out of 13 and ran out of ammunition. Of course, we've all seen that in a few movies. So they ran out of ammunition. Next thing you know, the British hit her with a 50, whatever it was, whatever gun they were using, right in the back of the tank. It blew it up. She was on fire. She saw herself come out of that tank, standing there, and she could hear the scream. She died before her comrades in the tank. She could hear the screaming inside the tank. And then she's in total darkness. And the darkness and mute of sound. So she could see nothing. There was no light present, nothing. And what I've learned is that when we create or we cause acts like this, like or some of us, taking lives, a lot of it's interesting. It's like, well, so I had somebody even question whether that's real or not. And what they do is they put themselves, I think, this is the only story I had in this book, in this self-purgatory type situation to learn and be in the darkness and meditate on what they did, pray, try to find acceptance. And she said she was in there for a long time. And really what kind of brings almost chills to you, she goes, I see a pool of light. And I go, what? And she goes, I see a pool of light. I go, how big is this pool of light? She goes, it's the size of a large pond. And I go, what is that pool? And she goes, it's God. And, and then talked about how he came down and said, hey, look, you're going to atone for this. There's going to be other lives. It's not like, you're going to be forgiven for this. You're going to go back. You're going to play with cosmic amnesia, most likely, as she wakes up. You're going to play the roles of people you hurt. You're going to show the anguish, the pain. And that's kind of a karmic type thing in a way. Now, does that happen every time? Like, oh my gosh, you go back and, play the unfortunate ones you killed. Some of that, it's not like she's going to have to account for probably every one, but there's going to be some atonement. Right. Of she's going to feel that grief, and it's a sad situation to find herself in, doing something like that. But what was interesting about that was kind of shaky for her, obviously, but because that was only the early 40s. So what I went to, she just started to so deep that she started providing information on the current age of Aquarius, which I found interesting. We've all heard, this is the age. We've heard the song "The Age of Aquarius." Yeah. But she described that as saying, hey, people born under this sign, it's a lot of numerology and symbology and astrology. A lot of it's all worked in. It's very complicated. Will have greater psychic gifts and will be able to cross the barrier. And I'm like, the barrier? What do you mean by that? Be able to cross to God without, breaking through the various layers. There's layers. I mean, it's not, very few people can, get up close to where, let's say, the ascended masters are, the angels. And that's that takes a lot of lifetimes.
Yeah, I was fascinated with that story because as you look at a person actually going under a past life regression, you ask yourself the question: are you being guided in the present life to have that past life awoken by certain experiences that mimic the past experiences in different shades of it? And for myself, for example, I lived in Germany. I was interested in the story because I have a Jewish background and Russian background, and for me, I wound up going to Germany, and I married a German woman. I spoke fluent German, and within 5 months, I loved the accordion. I'd sit in the back and listen to the accordion with no interest or no background whatsoever. And then I'd say skip 17 years later, I was looking up at the vents in my gym, and all of a sudden I started to get panic attacks from looking at the vents from the ceiling. And then I would start having respiratory problems. And then I had I didn't have a regression, but I had an Akashic reading, which pointed to the Holocaust and being a doctor in one of the camps, which was...
Well, Adam, I would love, you always talk about it off air, but I'd be happy to do a past life for you.
All right. That would be interesting.
And not only on that life, but see how many 3 or 4 other lives we can find for you.
Yeah, no, I understand. Well, getting back to that particular story, did the person have the characteristics from that past life brought into that present life?
Not at all. I mean, they're an attractive 26, 7-year-old English major, knows computers, technology, things like that. But no, not like she'd eat Wiener Schnitzel every night and drink barbarian beer or anything. There was not any sign whatsoever. Totally shocked her too.
Interesting.
But that's a tough thing to hear, obviously. So I kind of guided her, like, not that memory would affect them, because that can. So we kind of said, well, you're not going to. It's all recorded, obviously, but I didn't want her to go home and carry that at 26 years of age. So, like I said, you're going to, these memories are going to go away. They're just some past life, and so I don't. You want to be careful too when you're bringing somebody into a very traumatic life. And there's a lot of them out there, obviously.
Does a person's personality dictate the entrance into that world? Are there different formats of bringing a person to that place based upon the person?
That I use, like different formats, like different
Well, in other words, if a person is more nervous or more confident, is there a way of bringing them in a different manner, knowing that they may be more defensive towards opening up?
Well, you know what? Yeah, I mean, you have free will. So even in a super conscious state, your first priority is yourself. And, that's why when you see people dance around like chickens or whatever, that's because they don't mind dancing around like a chicken under hypnosis. If you don't want to do it, you might not do it. It's not like you're, just walking around like a robot. So no, even when I was hypnotized, I had the therapist, or not the hypnotherapist, whatever, the hypnotist said, do you know anybody in this life that you knew in that life? And I hesitated. And, I don't need to go into detail, but I think, one of my family members had orphaned me in New York City. And I'm just thinking, wow, do I want to say that? Do I want to share that? So I think you find that with hypnosis, with the free will aspect, it's not like you're just going to blurt out everything. You might have something you want to say, but no, I think a lot of times not a lot of times, but sometimes if they feel, it depends how you direct them into it too. I mean, if you say, okay, you're just observing, we're not going to get emotional. That's one life of many you've had, then they open up, but you got to kind of get them into that state of mind.
Yeah.
And that's important. And, it's a great life where, you're the king of Egypt, or not the king, but, if you have a pretty king of, in France or something, believe me, those lives spill out pretty well. I mean, it's like, wow, because it's just amazing some of the things you can learn. But I find that, a lot of people that are in a hypnotic state, you have that free will component. You do not have to volunteer that information if you want, but you're aware of that information. It comes right to you in, images and pictures and memories. So you know it. You might not want to tell the therapist that, but you have that right there in front of you.
I think the world in itself would be a better place if we knew that we put a greater emphasis on the soul, insofar as that the body is just a suitcase for that soul, and it's not the here and now that will just exist. And as you said earlier, based upon, I guess, Justinius, you said, if that's who it was, and then how the church denounced reincarnation.
Yeah, back in
and it hasn't been reinstated since.
Well, 1500 some odd years of just, or close, maybe 1470 years now, to where, I could ask, and it's kind of sad actually, but I can ask anyone I meet, whether Catholic, Christian, Presbyterian, whatever, Mormon, you name it. And very few, I haven't really had one that could tell me, oh yeah, I knew that already. They must have done it. So if we had it in our Bible, as we have, as the Hindus and the Buddhists already know about reincarnation and start out young with meditation when they're, the kids are like 3 years old in China, that helps. And, we don't do that here. And, it'd be nice if, I think if people, not even just knowing about reincarnation, but, knowing you're not separate, that you're all this big wave of energy, and it doesn't really matter, the color of your skin, doesn't matter your political persuasion, but there's a lot of separation, and a lot of fences being put up to, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm a Catholic, I'm a Muslim. And what happens is, people get caught in that illusion trap, to where they just, they get themselves where they, and the media is convincing. So when you come down here at Earth School and take a soul contract and to take lives, and on top of that, you have cosmic amnesia, and you got a list of 12 things you got to work on this time around. It takes quite an interesting person, because, you have relationships, you have your career, you have your children, you have your pets, we have COVID-19, we have, and if you're in America, is pretty soft compared to, I could be also, fighting in Iraq or Syria, getting bombed too, while, trying to do all the regular things we do here. So some lives are super challenging. Some lives are amazing. I mean, people can look at my life and say, wow, that's a shame he's paralyzed. But I'm in America. I took the thing in America. My family's very supportive. I didn't hit my head, have head trauma. Some of those lives people take are extremely challenging. So, we all know our limitations. We all heard the cliche that, source, God, your spirit, you can take what you can handle. That's not always true. I mean, there was that one girl in my book that committed suicide. and realized that was
Right.
not the way to go.
Yeah. It's you look at the well, in retrospect, and looking at what you just said, I believe, I guess, a victim mentality, and where we develop the self-pity as opposed to advancing our soul and knowing that our soul lives on. Uh, fighting through family members, and fighting through the way you think you're supposed to act, and challenging those beliefs, and then finding your own path. I guess it's a little bit isolation.
Well, you know what, my injury kind of led me here. I think they kind of were aware that it's going to take something pretty dramatic to, kind of shift my perspectives, my focus, my attention, something a little deeper than, not saying there's anything wrong with it, going to the gym and having fun and living life and never realizing there's, possibly more to this. So, we've kind of, and plus we had curiosity. We had a curiosity, not so much about, 3D or third dimensional surface stuff like, politics or this sports, whatever, but more just like what happens, where do we go beyond this? I always had that fascination with, kind of behind the veil, so to speak. So that led me to just read for years and, practice hypnosis and bring people into hypnotic states and learn more about the other side. And, Dr. Michael Newton's book's probably the best out there by far. They kind of started with that. And, I thought, let's take what some of the things that Newton was trying to discover before he passed away, and see if we can expand on that a little bit. In other words, we have some people, they tell me their soul color. Michael Newton came up with that originally. He was the one, at least in America. I mean, there could be obviously Buddhists or Hindu monks over there that have already knew about this eons ago.
Right.
But for a guy that was a doctor and did 8,000 readings over 40 years in a very meticulous scientific way as a doctor, you got to he was an atheist for 7 years before he even thought about saying, hey, wow, this is real. It took the University of Virginia, they went over 30 years in a pair on children to see if they've led past lives. You got these kids at 4 or 5 years of age saying, yes, I was in this fighter plane, I got shot down, I was off the coast of this island in 1942, my friends are these people. And you got to look at that and just say, wait a minute.
Yeah.
If everything is energy, which it is, they kind of know that from quantum theory and physics and everything else. Our consciousness, comes down. We're a house, and you mentioned a suitcase. Your house is this infinitely amazing biosuit to handle Earth. And the human, they made a pretty good body overall. Obviously we see, sadly, the cancers and things like that, and that could be environmental, it could be lifestyle, it could be a lot of reasons. Or maybe you just chose that, to die of cancer and have the others around you feel the sorrow and the pity and the loss. And it's a very complicated web. And my understanding is from the top psychics I've dealt with is 2 things run the universe. And one of them is love. That's number 1. And the second is math. Everything's been coded. I asked on the other side, the human body, every single lymph node, blood cell, it's all been coded to where it's actually a mathematical equation, much higher realms than here. And that's what I've learned. So if we just look at what we know as God, Brahma, the collective consciousness, source, whatever name you want to use. And in the Hindu text, which I think they might have some credence here with this, they can look at it being 315 to 330 trillion years old. So that's a super long time for a brain to form and grow and this, that, and the other. And the reason I use those numbers is because they came out 10,000 years ago and knew that the Earth, is 4.5, 4.6 billion years old, that our galaxy is really 17 billion years old. I think NASA with their Hubble Space Telescope, we're probably at about 15.8 right here. But it's funny, every year at Hubble, they keep raising it. They keep raising it. Well, we've gone out a little farther with the telescopes. We think it's 16 billion. So it's growing up closer to that Hindu number they knew 10,000 years ago. So I kind of look at it in that way. And if we can get a perspective on that, then you got to look at, okay, before God, how was he formed to have that ability to grow for 330 trillion to where, he could create universes with just a thought. So
it's amazing.
Pretty fascinating stuff.
Yeah, something you mentioned before that I just wanted to speak about. You spoke about the auric color of a person, or you mentioned the person who wrote about that. Uh,
Right.
and speaking in terms of the aura itself, there's a main color that each person is born with that represents their chakric level, auric
Well,
level.
well, they're not born with that color. Every soul starts out like white,
Okay.
okay, for the
Yeah.
most part. And Newton found that if you look at Earth today, which is very interesting, I've never saw this anywhere else. He thinks about 75% of the souls on Earth today are white souls. In other words, very young souls. Now, if we look out and then you have the breakdown, you go, and this is what he found with 8,000 readings. I mean, he would ask this question, what color is your soul? And he would see how evolved they were in a sense. Now, the highest is purple. Once you turn purple, you don't come back unless you made that conscious decision to come back. But, it breaks down. I mean, it's like what you might expect. And, you have maybe, 15% to 20% that might be, the yellowish green moving to green. You got like 5% blue and a way smaller number than 1% for purple. But they're coming back, is my understanding, and they're reincarnating back. And what I've also learned, which is interesting, I can't remember the source, but is that younger souls aren't coming back now as much. Okay, and if we look at a lot of the generation, the millennials, some of them, I mean, very, maybe at the age of 13, 14, they're mature, they know what they want to do, they know what they're majoring, they make very good grades, they're very artistic. So that's kind of what you're seeing. And I understand that the speed along Earth's evolution or process is that, they're not going to allow souls that are going to, mess things up down here too much. So you're seeing a more evolved soul coming in now. And the girl even brought that up at that age of Aquarius, Lieutenant Herzog. See, you're starting to see future leaders that are, some are born now, some will be born over the next 40 years. And it's kind of wild though. But what I've learned also is that they're like beacons of light, which are strategically anchored all over the globe in every country, to where you're going to start to see this mass awakening probably over the next several years is what I've
Light warriors.
Yeah, especially with the internet. I mean, the work you're doing, Adam, obviously that's a light warrior type, thing you're doing here. I mean, you could have done anything else. I could be doing something else. But, if you feel that need to say, hey, I feel like I kind of got to grasp maybe whatever in my limited human consciousness, I have a kind of an idea that there's more than this. There's more that meets the eye, so to speak, unless you're gifted.
Well, I've always asked that question. I mean, I think the mundane, not in mundane lifestyle, you don't ask for problems, you don't ask for issues, but you do ask for challenges that enhance the soul. And as you said, these light beings of higher vibration are maybe being anchored into the earth to try to raise other people's levels of consciousness.
Well, I think that's true, and I think Casey talked about this. Even guys like David Wilcox wrote a very good book on that. Kind of that's the source code or source field. I mean, it's a very good book. There's things that are moving this planet, into something a little more in line. Now, what's interesting is a lot of people, it's hard to understand this, but our planet's 4.5 billion years old, which is what it is. Okay, the sun's maybe 4.6, maybe a little bit 100 million years older. But the galaxy we're in, the universe we're in here, is closer to 16 billion. So there are so many star systems that have evolved so far beyond us. I mean, my understanding is we're in a very young universe out of God's universes. In other words, we're in like probably the youngest 5%. Now, that makes sense. Think about that. If we have a God that the Hindus are telling us is 330 trillion years old, we have an Earth at 4.5 billion years old. We're living in a universe that's 17 billion years old. We got plays that formed way before us in Orion and Sirius. So, not to get off topic here too much, but one of my first fascinations was the evidence on the ground, obviously, from the pyramids and the mathematical modeling. Just the amazing things that you can just see here, and all the stories about the floods and more, light, people coming down from other stars. I mean,
alien life, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, you just got to kind of look at that whole thing and realize that, wait a minute, we're like kindergartners here. We really are in a lot of ways.
Maybe you could.
And that's why we see bickering and arguing as much.
No, I agree. And I think within the next coming year or so that something will be announced with some type of alien
I think
connection.
you're right. Yeah, I even had one psychic tell me, this is like 5 years ago, she goes, by 2022, we'll all be aware,
Yeah.
there'll be enough evidence and enough sightings that, there's already enough of that already. You got a lot of guys from, black box projects like Skunk Works at Lockheed and the CIA and the NSA and, the Air Force.
Pentagon.
I
Yeah.
just talked to a guy the other day. I'm not going to give his name, obviously, but he's CIA 30-year spy plane guy. Just met him just out of the blue. And he flew 2 million miles on a spy plane, CIA, flying over, parts of Iraq and all these missions, and very interesting guy. And told me, I said, well, you have to ask the question, obviously. You've got 2 million miles in the air. Did you ever see a saucer? And the first time I read a guy that I met personally tell me this, he goes, well, Dave, I didn't write about it in my book, but yes, we saw a 125-foot saucer flying alongside our plane. The whole crew, about 30 of us were on this plane. We all saw it, and it stayed next to us for, they were going about, I don't know, 800 miles, 500 miles, whatever. I don't know what the speed was.
Wow.
I could ask them that again probably tomorrow if I wanted to. About 20 foot wide, and then it just took off. I mean, just no windows, no, just all silver craft. It just took off about 125 feet long. So are we seeing signs like that where, they're going to fly alongside, spy planes that are flying super high? And we've all read, some of us have read the stories about turning off the nuclear reactors. And
Yes.
all that cool stuff. But that gives us more hope. I mean, if you go back to, the atom bomb periods we went through, and then we go into the 60s with the Cold War, people were like, half their lives like scared to death. I got to get it on my desk. We better practice fire drill. I wasn't around then, but, we've all seen the reels and heard the history. So what's interesting, we've heard that won't happen again. We'll not see another atom or nuclear weapon off on this planet.
Right.
Even if people get nutty in certain countries or whatever, or they go off accidentally, or somebody cyber hacks them, which is probably a bigger fear. And somebody, gets into the program and sets them off. We've all seen those movies too, but that's a fear. But, I heard they just shut them down.
Yeah.
Which is good. And you look at it, you go, well, why would that be? This is a nice planet. I mean, if even in our neighborhood, there's nothing like this with the diversity and the polarity and the divisiveness. I mean, it's really a hell of a place to come down to.
And the minerals also.
Well, we got good gold. We've heard, other planets have gone for those sometimes or places. Yeah. But I think what a lot of young souls are doing is growing. And you come down here and you accelerate your soul's growth from what I've learned on Earth compared to other places. And they all know they all have full consciousness. They might be in a middle realm of some sort. It's like we're hypnotizing people. They might be in an area that's not near as diverse as this. This is probably one of the most diverse planets there is.
Yeah.
At least in our area.
Hearing all this information that you're speaking of it proves and it shows that a soul that is discovering and is seeking can never be contained. And you're a soul that can't be contained because you show that in your everyday life and in speaking with you. And
I enjoy learning. It's something that's kind of
me too.
And there's just so much out there. I mean, we're never going to know it all. We'll not know it all this life, but I think each step we take in different incarnations and such is that, and this kind of interesting. So I tell you real fast. I did this in a meditative thing. I was traveling around. The master came to me and kind of told me some of this stuff. But our life is like a pyramid. We're building our pyramid brick by brick. And they said that, God's at the very top. It's the most densest, compressed, powerful energy at the very point, radiating down. And then, the sides of this pyramid are, it took a while to meditate this out, but like wisdom, truth, service, and compassion. So what happens is the interior of this hollow pyramid is full of love. That's what love is. It's a love gas in a sense. So as you build the bricks of this foundation on all the sides, trying to get closer to God, on all the sides, truth, wisdom, compassion, and service, the love inside as you build the bricks keeps compressing as well. So as you get more evolved and take these challenges and service and do whatever, grow in wisdom by reading and, things like that. Service, maybe you're helping others and things along those lines. And compassion, you're showing compassion, saying, hey, just because you don't believe what I believe, I can accept what you believe, and I'm going to realize that we're all connected on this thing, on this one rock together now in this school. So, if you get more people to have perspective like that, Adam, obviously it would cut down on probably a lot of bad things.
Yeah. Okay. On that note, I'd like to thank you very much for sharing the time with me and my audience. You're a truly inspiring person. If there's something else you'd like to just share with the audience.
Well, I did. What I did was I put on. Then I haven't put anything on recently, but I have about 14 recordings on there on my website, davidrippy.com. They're free. Go on there. Insomnia, stress and anxiety, chronic pain, migraines. You name it. And I just try to do like kind of an overall thing, because obviously if you're living with chronic pain, that's going to occupy most of your mind time and brain activity, I would guess. Or if you have insomnia, you're not generating those melatonin every night, you might want to listen to one of these tapes. And I would also say, if you have anxiety going into a job, stress, listen to the tapes, realize you're an immortal soul, and you'll come out feeling pretty immortal afterward.
Yeah. Okay. I'll share all that information on my site and all the books as well.
Dave, I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed my time with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.